Thank you, Hillary, for the kind introduction. I'm very excited tonight to meet with Santiago Bosch. I was referred to him by Olivia Perez Colimer in June of 2021, so this goes back a ways, but we finally got together. I'm very excited about tonight. Thank you so much for coming. Let me first introduce him. He was born and raised in Barquisimeto, Venezuela. He was inspired by his father, saxophonist Jaime Bosch, and began studying piano at the age of 9. By age 15, he started composing music and playing professional gigs, participating in albums, recordings, and with diverse artists around the country. He graduated from UPEL University with a professor's degree in music education, earned a bachelor's degree in piano performance from Magna Cum Laude from the Berklee College of Music, and a master's degree in contemporary jazz performance from the prestigious Berklee Global Jazz Institute. Santiago has been featured in live performances and masterclasses and recordings with a bunch of artists. I'll name a few here that he's working with: Tim Miller, you'll see later, Hal Krug, Nate Wood, uh, George Garson, Jerry Bergonce. I'm sorry, I'm probably not getting these right, but just a long list. If you go to his bio, it goes on and on and on. So welcome and thank you so much for your time today, Santiago. This is really a pleasure. I've enjoyed spending the last 3 weeks just listening to all your wonderful music. Well, not all of it, I'm sure, but just some fascinating kind of compositions. Kind of jazz, electronic music. I've listened to your improvisations, which just blow me away. You're like Chick Corea all over it's just amazing stuff. And we're going to explore a little bit of that today and see, how you even think about that, how you go about doing it. I am totally in heaven when I am so envious when I see you surrounded by about it looks like 15 keyboards there, I'm sure. But you got all these keyboards and it's every I think piano player's dream to be surrounded by all this wonderful sound. But let's start with this. Tell me a little bit about. So you grew up with a father that was obviously a musician. Um, what's some of your earliest memories of music? I mean, did your dad like practice in front of you, or what were some of the early ways you were exposed to music as a kid? We just love to hear about how you grew up.
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to your
My pleasure.
interview.
Yeah,
It is a great pleasure to be here, sharing a little bit of my music life with you.
sure.
And so, as you mentioned, I grew up in Venezuela. My father is a musician, and he's my number one influence, music hero.
Mm,
So the first musical experiences happened through my father's collection of cassettes and LPs and
mm,
CDs. And so
hmm
when I was a kid, my dad was, always like listening to great music, and I was always like very interested and excited about that. And I used
mm.
to steal my dad's cassettes. I had my own little like record player that he got me, and I
Did you
I
say
was like a
steal? You used to
huge.
steal them?
Yeah.
You
I
just
used to sneak
walk
to
off
his
with them.
room, just grab some cassettes and like take it to my room like secretly, thinking like he wasn't
I,
gonna like see that I was doing that.
I love it. Yeah.
But yeah, basically that was my main or my first, like musical like encounters or
Mm,
experiences. Like
hmm
I was just being like very stimulated by great records, great musicians, great um like music for me was just like like putting a record on and like just traveling, going to like some other place, right? Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to describe with words sometimes.
Now you're talking about records. You're talking about old LPs, yeah, the vinyl. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. So my dad had a record player, and
hmm
it was always a pleasure listening to the sound of a record player. It's like so
Mm,
different than anything else, as everyone
yes.
knows. But I guess my favorite or the most used format for me was cassettes. Like there
hmm
were cassettes all over, the house. My dad
Sure.
used to make his own like, you could like make your own like custom cassettes. With like if you had a cassette deck like recorder, he will like mix his favorite tracks in this cassette. So that's what I got, when I was a kid,
Mm,
and it was, really exciting. I mean, I used to listen to the music of like Chick Corea, for example, like Return to Forever, like
mm.
some really wonderful albums, or for example, the music of like Jean-Luc Ponty, which is an
Mm.
amazing
Violinist. Oh God. Yeah.
violinist. Yep,
Yeah.
and he did like some like great fusion records like in the '70s. So, some like some maybe early '70s rock or mid '70s rock.
Oh, so not all
Um,
jazz. You listen to other music as well.
yeah, I was exposed to the music of the Beatles, of course. That was huge. I was a huge Beatles fan when I was a
Ah.
kid.
Okay.
Um, what else? You know, some Led Zeppelin classic or some like Deep Purple or
Hmm.
there's this band called 10 Years After that I used to listen to as
Sure.
well. Rare Earth, that was another band when we were growing
Hmm.
up.
Hmm.
And a little bit of like Frank Zappa too, which was like
Oh, yes.
amazing. And so, you know, that kind of
Peaches
like,
and Regalia is one of my favorites of his, where it does it plays up in thirds the whole time. That was a crazy piece. Yeah. Yeah.
I know, he's a wonderful, incredible genius composer.
Yeah. Now, how did
And
you
so,
get into piano? Because your father was a, I'm sorry to interrupt. Your father was a
yeah.
saxophonist. Did you try your saxophone at any point, or what were you what instruments were you most exposed to, and how did you end up with the piano? I know you started at 9 on taking lessons, but curious how you got there.
Sure. It's kind of an interesting thing because, like, honestly, when I was a kid, like, I didn't really have like enough, like vision, let's say, of being a musician, or I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a musician or anything like that. I was
Yeah.
a huge like music lover, listener.
Yeah.
That was for sure.
Yeah.
But I guess somehow my dad maybe saw something in me that I had like some potential. So he tried to put me, in music school, which he
Hmm.
did, so I ended up like going to the conservatory back home for classical music. And
Hmm. Oh, you got hooked up there for a second. I'm sorry. We lost you for a second. Santiago, we lost your audio for some reason. I don't know why. Oh, there you are. Okay, you're back.
you're back. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry about that. It's just like it was a phone call that was coming in.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so so when you go to the conservatory and you're a kid, you're basically exposed to, well, I mean, first of all, I mean, it's all classical music, of course, and then I was taking like solfege and a little bit of music theory at the beginning. So, when I was this like young, I was maybe like 5 or 6 years old. Like I was not part of like any like ensemble at this point, or I hadn't really picked an instrument. But I try like to mess a little bit around with like violin or viola and things like that, and a bit of classical guitar as well at some point when growing up. But like none of these instruments were really like clicking with me. I don't know, like I couldn't really connect with what was happening. And but my dad was like very persistent, and he was like, hey, why don't you try piano? Let me just get you like a private teacher that you can just focus on. So he took me out of the conservatory, and I started like studying piano privately with this like wonderful classical piano teacher that she was around when I was a kid. She's the mother of one of my dad's musician friends. So, and she's wonderful. Her name is Lila de Gutierrez, and she was like an amazing. She's still around, and she's awesome. She used to play incredible. I used to go to her lessons and like being inspired by her and stuff. So yeah, I started with her. So basically from zero, I started
Hmm.
like practicing, how to read notated piano charts, and I started learning like some like you know some early Bach, and then like I'm some bar talk like for children,
Oh,
like really basic like classical piano stuff for about 3 years. And this is when I was 9 years old. So basically it happened because like I wasn't good at guitar, I wasn't good at the other instruments, and I wasn't like very consistent with any of those. So
hmm.
I ended up going to this great piano teacher, and for some reason piano the piano and I were getting along a little better than like
Yeah.
the other. And it was hard for me still to kind of like concentrate and practice. And my dad made me practice a lot. He makes sure I will practice at least 1 hour a day, because I always wanted to go out and play with my friends, or play video games. I was a huge video game nerd kid,
Ah,
when growing up. And but yeah, I mean, somehow I as I said, like the piano and I were getting along a little
yeah.
better. And yeah, that's kind
That's
of like how
wonderful.
it happened at the beginning.
Now, did your dad show you how to play any songs as a kid, or did you all self-taught through, or taught through the teacher how to play, or, you know?
Yeah, pretty much, the second thing you said, because uh, I guess like part of it was that like classical piano was great and beautiful and fun,
Mm.
but I already was listening to all these records that I told you about, like
Yeah.
more in the like jazz rock and some rock
Mhm.
stuff and stuff. And so to me, to my ears, that music was kind of like what I don't know, I wanted to sound like, or
Yeah.
it was just like the type of music that I wanted to explore more, I guess.
Hmm.
It was more relevant to me, like it kind of like I liked it better or something. So
Yeah.
at some point, getting more deep into the classical work, which I was not like a super high level classical pianist by any means, but
Hmm.
I studied with her for about like 2 years and a half, maybe. So
Hmm.
there was some evolution happening, right? So I
Yeah.
was getting more, but all of a sudden I decided not to uh, go anymore. Like I just didn't want to go anymore. I felt like a
Hmm.
little bit, or I wasn't really like enjoying that much,
Yeah.
learning this classical pieces.
Hmm.
And so I think I remember my dad being kind of like a little bit sad because he thought I was going to quit music
Yeah.
uh, for sure, but no, like I kept playing on my own, basically. Like
Hmm.
I was just trying to use my ears and like transcribe uh, um, things that I liked, or
Yeah.
like playing like like solo stuff, just exploring a little bit. Like if I would find like a couple notes that were sounding good together, like I was, oh, this reminds me of like this album or this thing. So I started like kind of like discovering a little bit like some of this like combination of notes, and like I
Yeah.
started like associating with things that I liked. So I started like memorizing them and playing,
Mm.
and we had a PC computer. We had a couple like music software, like there's this cool software I remember called Band in a Box, which is a MIDI thing. You could like create your own like play along tracks.
Right.
That thing used to generate solo, so I thought those solos were great. So I was trying to practice with Band in a Box, and some Jamie Abersol like play like jazz play alongs. All those things were also like part of my self discovery. Like after I left my classical.
Wow. So did you get any formal training between then and college?
Not really, not really,
Oh.
because when I went to college after I was done with high school, it was to study music education, and that wasn't really like a performance
Ah.
uh, program or anything like that. It was just
Right.
like
Right.
they were training students to be like music teachers for kids, pretty much. So
Right.
that's what.
Right.
And but of course, my parents wanted me to study something after high school. They didn't want me to be like around just like doing nothing,
Sure.
like.
Yeah.
uh, but I was already playing gigs. I was already like trying to learn on my own, like, and
Sure.
eventually I kind of had my own band with some friends, and that are very talented people. And
Hmm.
I was always like doing music, like
Mm.
on my own, I guess. And yeah, but I didn't have any formal training until I moved to the US in 2011 to go to Berklee.
Yeah.
That was
Uh-huh.
started like 11 years ago.
Yeah. That is
So,
amazing. So you really are pretty much self-taught except for the first few years of your life. And then, of course, going to Berkeley, you obviously had great teachers, professors, and influence and friends. And I'm sure it became an amazing experience. And you obviously got a lot out of it. I'm sure you also put a lot in there too. So
yeah,
that's
yeah, pretty
impressive.
much,
Yeah.
pretty much.
So it sounds like you pretty much knew you wanted to be in music in some capacity, even at a young age. You probably, I mean, you weren't ever thinking maybe I'm going to be a scientist or a mathematician. You were at least thinking of teaching music. So music was going to be in your life in some fashion or another. I'm not sure you knew as a kid that you were going to be this amazing jazz pianist. I think that was probably, you probably just became that over time. So that's yeah.
You're way too kind by saying
Oh,
that. Those, I'm like,
well, I got to tell you, knowing what I mean, I'm not a real jazz expert, but I recognize great jazz when I hear it. And I'm going to now share with some of the folks out there some of the wonderful music. So let me share my screen and make sure I share sound because that's something I sometimes forget to do. And first of all, let me show people this is your Facebook site, which is what I first went to. Olivia Perez Calimera said you got to check out Santiago Bosch, and so I went to his site, and there's all these wonderful videos of him playing, and as well as his significant other, And but anyway, lots of great stuff there. But there's also a wonderful site that basically is your, let me just pull this out of the way. I don't know if this is blocking your vision, but santiagobosch.com. You've got, video samples there. You've got audio samples. I encourage people to go to that site. And can they also buy your music on this site, I wonder? I hadn't asked you that earlier.
Yeah, well, not really. I use Bandcamp for that, as
Okay.
many independent artists, and that's probably the best platform if you want to like support my music.
Oh,
And
excellent. Okay. So, in fact, I apologize. I don't have that up. So that's bandcamp.com. I just put your name in. It should come up, right?
yeah, exactly. So actually, so you should be able to see a couple of like like recognizable like brands icons like on the top right corner. So you see
Oh,
like the
here.
Facebook. I think
And
Bandcamp should be there next to the
is
Spotify
is
one.
is that this one?
I believe
Oh,
it's the one next to it. It's it because that's Instagram probably. I believe.
all
I
right.
think what. Oh,
There we
yeah,
go.
that's
Bandcamp. Okay, good. So it's santiagobosch.bandcamp.com. Excellent. Okay. And then
that's probably the best platform for that.
excellent. Good. So we're going to hear some examples from these two. I don't think on your other site you have this one speak to me online yet there. Maybe we can drill into this here if that makes sense. But
Sure. Yeah.
okay. But before we do, I did want to go through there's a couple of wonderful things. Now this is the most recent one I think that you put together. So this is from Facebook, and this is you here again surrounded by a jillion keyboards. I just love this. Do you want to tell us a little bit about these keyboards? Uh, I have to admit it's been a while. I have a Kurzweil and I have um, a Roland and I have a couple of others. I have a Fender Rhodes someplace still
Oh,
packed away, but I don't have all these wonderful keyboards. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about them.
yeah. Sure. I mean, that's um, you know,
Sorry, I pressed the wrong button here. Let me I want to expand this out to the full screen. Here we go. Okay. Yeah. So what's
yeah.
this orange one that's right in front of you?
So that's a German keyboard from the late '90s. It's called the Waldorf Q.
Ah,
It's this is a type of synthesis that like merged in the mid '90s. It's called like virtual analog, and
hmm,
they were trying to like emulate the analog, like super retro keyboards with
yeah.
like the technology and DSP processors and stuff like that.
Hmm,
So
yeah.
it's entirely digital, but you have a lot of like knobs like for tweaking the sounds on the spot and changing things, and it's like a
Yeah.
really sounding board in my opinion.
Yeah. In fact, in one of your solos we'll see later, you play around with some of the stuff. So then you have a keyboard right above that. What is that white keyboard?
So that white little keyboard is called Arturia. That's the brand, and it's called Key Step Pro. Or sorry, Key Step Pro. That's the model of it. So it's a MIDI controller sequencer.
Ah,
So
okay.
you can record patterns. You can like make variations on the spot. You can like do like drum patterns with that thing, or you can like send an arpeggiator to another synthesizer for like bass lines, or
Yeah.
uh, you can do a lot
I
of
do
things
like
with
the
it.
way you layer things together. And what mechanism do you use to layer everything? Or you have these loop generators that you can then layer? Is that another box that I'm looking at in front of me here that does that for you?
Yeah, so basically with the white little keyboard, I'm controlling the drum sounds. So I pre-program all the
Yeah.
drum patterns. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, the drums are coming from that gray box, like big box that are kind of like in front of me, right next to that one.
Yeah. Okay. Hmm.
And that's a sampler. It's a sampler for the from the late '90s. It's an Akai S5000. So I made my own like drum patch based on like some other audio samples that I liked,
I love
and
it. Yeah. And how
with like
about
some.
the darker orange keyboard above the MIDI keyboard? What is that?
That's a Nord Modular G1, which is an amazing like little board. Also like like from 1998 around that time.
Mm.
Uh, Basically, you have like you can create multiple type of synthesis in one box by having like virtual modules and making all the patching like digitally. So you can
Mm.
have like synthesis, you can have like regular subtractive monosynthesis, you can have
Hmm.
like poly, subtractive synthesis and so on.
Yeah.
You can do a bunch of things with him with that keyboard, and of course, you know, you can like also use sequencers, like there's like a step sequencer. It's like a whole laboratory, but it's like
Yeah.
virtual.
It's a
You can
musical laboratory. I love that. And then you have a little tiny keyboard to the right of that. What is that?
So that's a modern analog mono synthesizer by Roland. It's called the SE02, and
Okay.
it's kind of mini Model T based keyboard,
Ah,
but
yeah.
it has some delayed effects, some like LFOs, and like some features that you don't find on a vintage Mini Moog, you know. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and the layout is like, you know, based on the Mini Moog D. So
I
it's a
love
really
it.
cool board and
Then
sounds
you have a
great too.
big mixing board behind that.
Yeah. So
What?
that big thing, it's actually a synthesizer tool from 1971. It's like
Oh my
really,
God.
yeah.
Who,
So
what brand is that?
it's the ARP 2600.
Oh, I remember that. Now, are these things you've had since you were younger, or are these things you've collected over time because you just love the sound of them, or both?
Both, pretty much,
Yeah.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
I when I was like, you know, a teenager, especially, you know, I was able to, you know, afford those things because of obviously I started working and doing
Yeah.
things, and I started like, you know, buying, you know, I mean, my first like vintage keyboard was a Rhodes, a Fender Rhodes Mark II,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
And you know, that was how I started. Then I got a Wurlitzer, then I got a Rhodes Mark One. Then at some point I was able to start buying synths, and that was
Yeah.
kind of like my favorite thing to do besides playing music, was just trying to find instruments back home, you know, in Venezuela. And
Now you have four more keyboards. You have the Matrix 12, is
yeah,
that what? And then that's just a standard keyboard, I imagine, right?
yeah. Well, the
But
Oberheim Matrix 12, it's an analog polyphonic synthesizer from 1985. So it's
oh my
also
God, we're going back in time. Okay. And below that, what do you have? What's below that?
yeah, and below that, that's a modern keyboard. It's a really great. It's a Yamaha Montage 6.
Uh-huh.
And that's more of you know, versatile keyboard. You know, you have like thousands of like samples and sounds, and you can do Rhodes, you can do Hammond organs, you can
I
do
just love
drum.
this. I mean, this is like heaven to me. This is and then you have other two keyboards down the lower bottom here. The orange one on top. What is that?
So the one on top that you're seeing, like that's, you know, you know, I'm looking at right straight to the
Yeah.
small so that's like on my left side. So that's the Nord Lead 2. It's also
Mm,
keyboard from 90s,
I
and it's
love it.
great for like analog emulation and leads and some pad stuff.
Oh
So
my God.
I use it, and it's like one of my favorite like keyboard actions board. I mean, for
Yeah.
synth, I feel like the keyboard action is like one of the best, or the most like comfortable
And
for
then
me to.
below that, we can barely see, but I know you have another keyboard tucked in there. What is that underneath?
That's a Fender Rhodes too, but it's
Ah,
actually it's a much newer Rhodes. It's a Rhodes Mark V. It was the last one that came out like in the mid '80s, and the reason why I have it is just because that's like Chick's favorite Rhodes too.
a
That's the
beautiful sound. I have a Fender Rhodes that's an old style with the tines. I mean, you have to tune it up and everything. Is
yeah.
this one more electronic and not mechanical anymore, I imagine?
It is mechanical. It is still the same thing pretty much,
Oh, it
but
is. Okay.
there's some improvements to it. Like the keyboard action is like way lighter and way easier to play,
Yeah.
and the sound, it's a little more like brighter, more like bell-like focused, you know.
Yeah.
So my opinion is a little more like, I mean, the definition of the sound, for especially for soloing and melodies, is like it's better than like the older ones. The older ones
Yeah.
tend to be a little more darker, and it's a little more harder, in my opinion, to make all the keys sound with consistent like volume, you know. Like, I mean, some of
Yeah.
them tend to sound like really soft, and some of them tend to sound like really loud. And but this
Mhm.
one is more, you know,
I love
I
it.
think,
I love it.
and it's easy to play, and it's much lighter too, because the whole case, it's made of plastic instead of like, you know,
Ah,
wood.
yeah, they were very heavy. I had to have three people help me move it.
Those ones are really heavy. So this one is like, it's still very heavy, but it's more
Yeah.
much easier to you know,
Yeah.
to take it if you want.
So now tell us about this piece. This is a fairly new piece that's on Facebook. What's
Yep.
the background on this piece?
So it's just me, like, you know, like exploring, you know, ideas like on the spot. This one
Yeah.
has it's more of like an improvisational type of approach, you know, because
Yes.
I have to like write little songs, more like pop songs, like with this kind of format. But for this particular video, I went more for, you know, like a whole improvisation of things, but everything is a groove based too. So there's a rhythm, there's a beat happening, but I'm making variations on the spot by looping some of the like small sessions of the patterns, because the white keyboard allows me to do that kind of thing. So I'm like
Yeah.
going and I'm using another synthesizer that has a step sequencer as a bass kind of synth, and then I'm playing, some textures on top, and then I'm playing a solo over it, using a lead sound with a Nord lead, and it's just like a whole, exploratory, like groove based kind of life, like one guy, improv,
Yeah. All right.
So
Let's hear it. This is great. Here we go. Love it. Love it. Oh my God. I'm blown away by those riffs. How can you share with us how you think about even going about playing something like that? I'm just trying to figure out how, you take obviously you're in a chord sequence, and how do you know what to even play in there? It just looks like impossible to me. It's like I'm classically trained and I do some improvisation in a very simple blues fashion, but what you're doing goes way beyond that. And it's just like so much like the chicoreas of the world. Just how do you, how do you even, I guess, are you even thinking at that point? Are you saying like F sharp minor nine, or is it more like you're just, you have a feel for where you want to go, and you've got these kinds of ideas that have built over time that you can meld into place instantaneously. Just trying to figure out how you do it.
Yeah, I guess it's like, it's more like, the second thing you were talking about.
Yeah.
It's like, very little or like zero of like, I'm gonna play an F sharp minor and then like use the F sharp minor pentatonic scale or anything like that. It's more
Yeah.
like rhythm focused kind of playing for me. It's like I try to just like, play with, a good rhythm, like as best as possible.
Yeah.
I'm just, keep with the pulse and
Hmm.
groove and the tempo. And I'm trying to really like play, like in this particular instance, I'm really trying to like nail all my soloing and my chords and everything like right on the grid, like specifically like, subdividing and making sure like everything sounds like very rhythmically.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
played a lot, and I think like, that's kind of like why I love so much, all these great, jazz improvisers like Chick or Alan
Oh, yeah.
Holdsworth and,
Who are some of
so
the
forth.
other, who are, now at your career, who are some of the other people you admire?
Okay, so the other guy I mentioned, his name is Alan Holdsworth. He's a guitar player. He's a
Oh,
really famous
yeah.
guitar player, that is like, also a huge like influence and
Hmm.
one of my favorites ever. And he plays obviously, like so unique, so amazing, and his synth work, because he also he's famous for playing this like, super weird guitar MIDI controller from the 80s called the Syntax. So
Ah.
the guy like, making like synth sounds and like
Hmm.
and using like, synth type of sounds. And that's kind of like why he's also like so influential on my.
Yeah. I will tell you, to a layman like me, it almost looks like you're playing any note you want, but obviously you're not. So I'm just trying to think about, can you maybe show us a little bit of something or play a little, like give us an idea of how you think about it, or like a sequence, maybe play a little bit slower for us and show us what's going on, or whatever you're comfortable with. I'm not sure what's useful in a small space of time.
It's like what you said, it's like maybe, not thinking much about like what I'm going to play,
Yeah.
but all those like, phrases or patterns or licks or whatever you want to call them,
Yeah.
those are pre-rehearsed over the
Right.
years, and
Right.
we learn, and it's like it's an improvisation, but it's also at the same time maybe it's not so much an improvisation in the sense that I already have practiced, a bunch of
Yeah.
patterns, and I
Yep.
have been like make them kind of my own, or maybe, if I transcribe like a little section of a solo, and then I
Right.
make interpretation of it by just making little variations and just creating kind of my own pattern. So that's all like, of course, like
Yeah.
uh, pre-recorded in my brain, right?
Yes. Santiago,
And
can you think of like one of the first patterns you ever learned? Is there a little diddle that you learned? Is it when you were younger that maybe it was maybe it was from Return Forever or something like that, that some little part of solo that you focused on and you just play around with that, just to give us an idea of how you think?
I guess like always, the very very first thing that comes to mind is always for me like the pentatonic minor scale.
Uh-huh. Huh.
So that's usually for me like, basic, like modern sounding kind of pattern. So if I'm in the key of C, for example, and I stay inside C with the pattern or the scale, maybe I can change the keys of, keeping the same notes but just shifting the keys while, the bass is playing C. So I can be doing. And then I go
Wow.
back, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
went from C to F, then I went to F sharp, or I went to E at some point, so it's like all this,
Mm.
transposition of the same thing against the main harmony, let's say.
Yeah.
It's just like based on C, right? So yeah, so that's like a really basic concept for me of like,
Yeah.
grab tonic minor scale
Mm-hmm.
and shift around or against one particular chord or root. And the most important part, as I said, is like, I always try to be clear on the rhythm too. So
Mm.
like
Yeah.
the pulse, you know. I mean, I don't have a metronome handy right now, but
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Hey, let's get into some of your music now. I'd like to highlight some of the let's see. Let's go to your excuse me for a minute. Yeah, go to your site here. So I have, let's see, um, your discography. So here
uh-huh.
are two of your albums, and it doesn't have your most recent one. I guess we can play that in a few minutes too. But out of these, no, these are just samples. So this is wonderful because it's a great way to get a good feel
Mhm.
for the different kinds of things you've done. Um, where would you like to start? I mean, we probably don't have time to play all of them, but I certainly want to play ones that have meaning to you, or maybe some special, perspective. Not to use a word, that perspective. Like, how do you come up with the idea, maybe, or which of these would you like to highlight first?
Um, maybe you can play track number 2, which is
Living in
Living
the
in the Past.
past. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just play that one for a second.
By the way, I love that patch. What's that patch called, or is that something you made up? That galactic sounding, spacey patch. It's just a wonderful sound. Is that a
Yeah.
patch? Yeah, that's well known out there. Is that one you built, or what is that?
Well, it's no, I didn't build the patch, but I'll tell you what it is. It's the Rhodes, is the Rhodes piano, the real one,
Ah,
connected to a couple of Yamaha made this like really cool box. I'll show it to you if you want. Um,
because for those of you that don't know, patch usually refers to, basically a pre-built sound, and sometimes they're generated all by synthesizers, sometimes they're generated elsewhere. Else, I had a Roland at one point. I forget which one it was called, but I buy these patches. They were literally like little cards that would go, and they might have 20 patches on them, and I would be able to save them, manipulate them, and So I used to have a lot of fun with that. And it's been a long time since I've played with that, but this is wonderful. Okay.
so those are the Yamaha Magic Stomp boxes. I'm using one for pitch shifting, and I'm using another one for chorus. But
Uh-huh.
that patch was made by Alan Holdsworth because he used these pedals, and like Yamaha worked with him, I guess, or something
Oh,
like that. We
okay.
built like a bunch of patches for the Yamaha Magic Storm.
Hmm.
So I'm using the Alan Holdsworth chorus patches with a pitch shifting patch, and then that effect that you hear, like that is like coming in like a swell or like a fading kind of thing.
Mm.
I'm using a volume expression pedal for that. So it's like I play the chord first, and then I let the volume, like raise the volume up with the
Mhm.
pedal, and that generates that kind of like fading, like quick fading, like effect.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like a Rhodes at all,
No.
but it sounds.
Now, by the way, Santiago, is this album all you, or are you playing with other band members as well?
No, I'm playing with band members. So on this track, I mean, the reason why I chose this track was just because I'm a huge fan of Tim Miller, which I happen to
Yes.
be him. Uh, that was like a dream come true for sure.
Mm.
So when he agreed on participating in my record, which I was blown away, then he sent me like his guitar take on this song, and I was completely like blown away with happiness. I mean, I thought he
Yeah.
was just so wonderful, and so we're kind of like trading towards the end. That's the end of the song.
Mm.
Just like a crazy synth, and then guitar, synth like kind of sounding trade, with him.
Yeah.
And
Now, the
uh,
name of this album is Galactic Warrior. Should we listen to that, cut that track for a little bit? That's like 40 seconds you got here.
sure, yeah.
Okay. This is Galactic Warrior. Love it. So now you have some interesting names on some of these. Are there stories behind some of this? I notice you have one called Persecution. That sounds like pretty intense.
Well, actually, that's not really like a song in particular. That was more of like an experimental synth, free
Okay.
kind of. We put some groove on it, and then like I had George Garson playing over it, which is totally mind blowing as well.
Yeah.
One of my favorite saxophone players and teachers at Berklee,
Mm.
and the name, the name came right after I finished the whole thing. The whole thing was done, and it kind of sounded like. I mean, the thing is, like with this album in particular, I wanted to um, kind of like make a little tribute to like some of the video game music that I used to listen when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So like some of the names are kind of like I had the intent of like displaying like some sort of like video game character, or like or moment. That's why there's a track called Level 8, or like Persecution is kind of like the main character is being chased by I don't know what, and maybe they're
Ah,
shooting or something.
all right.
I mean, it doesn't exist. It's just in my mind, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like a little soundtrack kind of thing for a video game that doesn't exist. It's just
Okay.
like,
So
so
should we listen to Persecution and think of someone chasing us?
go ahead.
Here we go.
Let's let the chase begin.
The driving rhythm is really contagious. I just absolutely love that. Hey, since we mentioned Tim Miller a number of times, I want to basically go to the one where you're playing. This is you soloing with Tim Miller.
Yep.
And let's see, where is this? This is um, at the 55 bar. Where is that? Is that in Cambridge?
That's in New York, actually.
Oh, in New York. Okay. So
Yes.
here you are. And do you know offhand what the name of this piece is? Is this a Tim Miller piece?
Just I'm not sure because I'm not really able to see what I wrote on the
Oh,
screen,
okay. Here we
but
go. We'll just,
I'll tell you after you play the clip to see
yeah.
if I.
What I love about this is you play in the beginning with two hands and kind of a almost like a Peaches and Regalia thing where you're playing in unison a little bit. I just love the effect of that. So here we are.
Cool.
to tell you, that was just amazing to watch. I would have run out of ideas in the first minute. I don't know how you just kept coming up with ideas upon ideas and layers upon layers. And even Tim Mills going, wow, I could see Tim. And, all the people in the audience were just bobbing their heads and really getting into it. It was a lot of fun to watch. That must have been a real trip for you. You were just in
Yeah,
your zone, man. That was awesome.
it was, it, was, it, it was a long solo for sure, but so much fun playing with those guys. I mean, I can't really like help it, right? It's just
Yeah.
the way it is, like so grooving and so inviting to play that it's like, whoa, it's kind of like easy to play with
Yeah.
them. And so it's like,
I'm
I,
hoping some of the other people I interview are going to watch you, because Jeff Berlin's a great jazz bass player, Joe Mulholland, Berklee, Mark Cross, who's now in New York too, in fact, a great jazz pianist. I'm sure they would love to see this interview, so I'm hoping that they'll join in on when it comes around. Like, we're actually recording this a little early, but that'd be great, because you have a gig on Tuesday night. Unfortunately for us, fortunately for you, but that's wonderful. Um, so yeah, so that was just beautiful. It was just wonderful to watch. Let's go back to the to the album there, and maybe go to your next album, which is the let me just make sure sometimes I forget to put the sound on when I share it. Okay, there we go. Let's go back to the other album, which is where am I now? Okay, the discography. Unless there's something else you want to play specifically on this. I like your questions and why, just as titles. But maybe we should move on, because we have about 20 minutes left or so. But by the way, I did ask you about Kelly's song, because I know your girlfriend's not Kelly. I said, are you going to get in trouble with that? And
yeah, that's my dog. That
you
was a
explained
family.
Kelly is your dog, just so everyone knows. That's not an old girlfriend. So just don't want you to get into any trouble there. So, but which of these would you like to have us listen to? There's such a great selection here.
Yeah, so that's from my very, very first record that I did back home in Venezuela with my friends. It
Ah.
was a band that I had at the time with this, wonderful friends and musicians. And
Mm-hmm.
those tracks are like, let me see. So we have intro, okay. Maybe you can play the one that says Oxido, which is composed by the guitar player on this record. That's the only song that is like not mine, but
Oh, okay.
it's a wonderful memory.
That's great. What a great solo. Yeah. Now these are just excerpts, so people know the actual album has obviously much longer runs. Now, forgive me, I don't know a lot of the. If you could translate these, what does this one mean? Perdido and Jungla. What's that?
That means Lost in the Jungle. So,
Oh,
well,
okay.
yeah, remember that this is a really old recording. I I made it in 2010 around that year, and
Yep,
I was living back home, so everything is like in Spanish.
yep.
uh,
And then
but
this is this a recording for dessert? What's this mean? Un recorrido.
it means like yeah, it's like taking a ride into a desert.
Into
That's kind of
the desert. Okay. And so which of these others would you like to play? I think we have room for one more, and then we'll go to your newest album, if that makes
uh,
sense.
well, actually, the newest thing is it's like a single. It's just one song. It's not really an
Oh,
album.
okay.
But
So we can spend a little more time on this then. What would you like to also play?
um, let's let's go to the last one, Via de Escape, which is with the
Okay.
acoustic. Like,
And that means what? On a way to escape or
yeah, exactly. It's like a
exactly.
way.
Okay, here we go. And this is before Berkeley, right? This is back when you were in Venezuela, true?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
completely true. I
very
mean, this
nice.
album much. Actually, I made the record because I was planning on moving to to the US to study to Berkeley, so I wanted to kind of like have like a fun little like memory with of me playing with my band, my friends, the
Yeah,
music I play and rehearse.
it's kind of a
And
time capsule of your life at that time and your musicality. It's a
yeah,
part of your
pretty much
journey.
I wanted to like do something before like just leaving town, and
Yeah.
I'm happy because this album has more of a sentimental value to me than like. But at the time, we put a lot of love and effort in making it like
Oh, of
as bad
course.
as
And what I love
possible.
about it too is that we didn't sample all these things, but it covers a wide range of just, it's not all the same kind of thing, it's got a wide range of different kinds of sounds and moods, and it's just a wonderful array of music
Thank
for
you,
people to listen to. Um,
thank you.
so let's talk about your newest album, which is now on your, or your newest song rather, which is Speak to Me, and this is on santiagobosch.bandcamp.com. Do I just click into it? Is that how this works? I haven't played this one yet, so.
You can click into it. There's also a YouTube video of us playing. I mean, this was made during COVID times, where
Oh,
when doing like the home recording video kind of thing, like, and then putting it together. So
yeah,
this happened kind of like during the transition of the COVID, like a year after or something, where we
yes.
were in the pandemic and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
I just wanted to kind of like stay creative and do something, and then I invited some friends. And actually, the bass player on this track is a guy that plays really, really awesome. He lives in Brazil, and he's from Brazil, and he was very kind and generous to like agree to play on the track for me and my friends.
Oh, this
And
is great. And this is Junior Braguinha. How do you say his
yeah,
name? Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
one bass player, and then Francisco Quintero, another Venezuelan musician friend of mine
Hmm.
from Berklee, super talented guitar player, and Tyson Jackson on drums, which is another Berklee friend that is from the US, and
Hmm.
he came to my setup here, my room, to record the drums, and I mic'd the
Excellent.
whole.
Oh, that's
And then I
great.
had Steve Hunt to mix the and master the track for me.
All right, so this is Speak to Me.
Mhm.
was kind of hard to hear the bass solo near the end, but the whole thing is high energy. Just love it. I can't thank you
Yes.
enough, Santiago. There's so much other stuff we could go through. I wanted to show people these other performances you have, surrounded by all these keyboards, and then you can find these on Facebook, folks. And then we have you playing at your was this your thesis at Berklee, or your final performance, your senior performance, I think, at Berklee? You have a
That
wonderful,
was the title when I did my undergrad.
yeah,
Hmm.
wonderful solos you had there. Some other synth solos you tried out, just some wonderful things on Facebook. So we had a lot more we could cover, but the hour is up, and I just wanted to thank you for sharing all this time with us and helping us really get a full appreciation of what you do. Do you have a when you gig someplace locally? Is that on your website, or how do we find out where to listen to you?
I guess the best way it's just to go to my Instagram
Yes.
and
Okay.
but like I guess Instagram mainly because sometimes when I have like cool gigs happening, I tend to post them or let people know like over there, like maybe.
Excellent. That's great to know. Excellent.
Yeah. Mhm. So that's the best
Santi,
way. Oh,
thank you so much for your time. I want to thank my wonderful wife for setting this up. She's just amazing, and the Jenks Center for making this possible, the Cummings Foundation for their help, and especially you, Santiago. Thank you so much. Next month we have David Tolk, Tolk, who is a New Age composer, very talented fellow. I'm sure we'll all enjoy that as well. Santiago, you have a great day, and good luck on your gig on Tuesday night. And thanks again for just sharing this wonderful hour with us. It was really a great experience. I just love your music. Keep doing what you're doing because it's wonderful.
thank you so much, Andrew, once again for everything, for all your words, support. It really means a lot. And please say hi to your wife, and thanks to her as well. And yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate
Excellent.
it.
All right. Have a great night. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Take care.
Bye. Thank you. Bye bye.